I want to welcome everyone to Emancipation Park. My name is Ramon Manning. I'm the board chair for the Emancipation Park Conservancy. This is a great historic moment for Texas, for Houston, and everyone else in this region. I want to take this opportunity to thank Parks and Recreation and the Emancipation Park Conservancy staff. Where's our executive director, Lucy? Okay, Lucy Bremond, y'all give her a big hand. I want to take this opportunity, and I'll be brief, and the Congresswoman and the Senator, as well as the Mayor, wanted me to kind of stay on message. But I must admit that I'm really, really excited about this opportunity because in this political climate, it took a Republican and it took a Democrat to get this done, and they're both from Texas. And I think this speaks to Texans, and Texans know how to get it done. So with that being said, we're all standing on historic and sacred ground, ladies and gentlemen. In 1872, community leaders pooled together $800 to acquire 10 acres of land, which is now called Emancipation Park. And these women and these men couldn't go anywhere else. So they were thinking about something larger than themselves. And they were thinking about a place to gather, to celebrate their freedom. And with that, I want to recognize all of our partners who helped bring this to fruition. I see my good friend, Guy Hagstad from the Kinder Foundation. I see a representative from Shell. I want to thank the Houston Endowment, of course, the City of Houston, OST Alameda Tours, and the Brown Foundation. Let's all give them a big round of applause. And I also want to acknowledge and recognize some of our community organizations. I see John Guest from the Houston Museum of African American Culture. I see some folks from the Third Ward Community Cloth. I see some folks from Project Row Houses. So I could go on, but I just want to continue to make sure that everyone recognizes that this public park is also a community park, and it's community organizations that make this thing go. Before I turn it over to the Congresswoman, there is one other special person I wanted to recognize, and that's Miss Martha, who is the great-great-granddaughter of Reverend, one great of Reverend Jack Yates. Let's give Miss Martha a round of applause. Now, as I said, and I have to really, really stress this point because I think it gets overlooked all the time. Everyone talks about these four men, but there were also women who helped and led this effort in helping to acquire this property, which is now Emancipation Park. And much like the civil rights movement, women, in my opinion, never got their just due. So there were a lot of women who went in their corn purses who helped pool together money, the $800 to acquire this property, which we call Emancipation Park. So I just want to make sure we don't forget that and we acknowledge that. And so, and with that, I'll step aside and bring to you my Congresswoman, Sheila Jackson Lee.
We are in the historic 18th Congressional District. We're in the great state of Texas. We're with such great friends, and I'm delighted, Senator Cornyn, to welcome you and to thank you, to give you the opportunity at this time to address this huge gathering of wonderful persons committed to the history of this nation and this state. Senator Cornyn.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Well, Congresswoman Lee, I told somebody earlier that Sheila Jackson Lee doesn't take no for an answer. You might as well say yes the first time. But it's great to be here with her in this historic Emancipation Park, and I want to thank her, obviously, for being my partner in the United States Congress in getting this piece of legislation passed. It's also a pleasure to be with my friend, the Mayor, Sylvester Turner, who I've known for a long time. Ramon Manning, thank you for your leadership as chairman of the Emancipation Park Conservancy. and thanks to all of you for joining us here today. One of the defining days for our country, our state, and our Houston-Galveston region came when President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, finally freeing all slaves in the states in rebellion. But slaves in Texas would not learn of this life-altering news for 2.5 years, until the day we now know and celebrate as Juneteenth. That was the day that Major General Gordon Granger and Union troops arrived in Galveston to share the news that all slaves are free. These newly freed men and women set out to spread the news to others, with many heading straight from Galveston, establishing a new community here in Houston. The significance of this path extends far beyond the elation they felt on that day. This, of course, is also about a shameful period of slavery during our country's early years. It paints a picture of early beginnings of Houston, the strong African American community that is, of course, now such an important part of the fabric of this incredibly diverse and beautiful city. And it also represents the eternal struggle for equal rights, which continues to this day. The stretch of land from here to Galveston is an integral part of our state and our country's history. And I hope that soon the importance of this trail won't just live in the history books, but it will be commemorated right here for generations of Americans to experience. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of sponsoring resolutions in the Senate recognizing Juneteenth, Independence Day, and I've had the honor of participating in the 150th anniversary celebration in Galveston in 2015. So when Congresswoman Jackson Lee came to me with this important piece of legislation and asked if I'd like to be the chief sponsor of it in the Senate, I was ready to do whatever it took to get it over the finish line, and we got it done. This law marks the first step toward establishing the Emancipation National Historic Trail. The 51-mile route from Galveston to Houston would become only the second national historic trail in the country honoring African American history. Shortly after this bill was signed into law, the San Antonio Express-News editorialized and said it perfectly. They said, quote, "Rare, if ever, has there been a time when President Donald Trump has made Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee dance with joy." And when it comes to preserving the African American history of our state and nation and honoring the legacy of Juneteenth for generations to come, I couldn't be prouder to be her dance partner. So I hope this serves as both a good example and a reminder that in spite of the narrative frequently spun, that indeed good bipartisan work is not only possible, it is actually getting done. Now I'd like to introduce my friend who led the charge on this effort in Washington, who just introduced me, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Senator Cornyn, I will accept your dance invitation. And we will dance all the way through the funding of this great project.
I knew this wouldn't be the end of it.
Right. It's a long dance. I'm a little bit emotional. My eye is tearing a little bit, so you all need to understand. And I'm so delighted to see the giants that are here. Mayor, you know, in public life, we get an opportunity to see all the people that are greater than all of us. And these are the people who worked and toiled and made this place a place of history and success. So we are standing on hallowed ground. Senator, thank you for coming and recognizing this area, now Emancipation Boulevard. But we likewise have taken that journey, and I know that Reedy Chapel, I'm trying to see if the pastor from Reedy Chapel has made it from Galveston. Well, you need to be up where we can see you. Right where? Trustee, and Come on up so we can, this is a family affair. Look at them, they got on Reedy Chapel. I want the senator to see all the way from Galveston. Let's give them a hand. We have committed to coming there. Reedy Chapel is enormously part of this great history, and we thank you. We couldn't have done it without your direct spot that had the essence of our freedom. And then as we made our way up, I was able to show the senator that there were markers, historic markers that Naomi Carrier allowed us to highlight. And of course, then the stupendous representation of Eileen Lawal in the Natural Resources Committee. They couldn't do anything but look in awe and vote aye. That's about all they could do, and I'm delighted. But I'm also delighted to have my good friend, Mr. Cook with Hollywood Cemetery, and of course, to recognize Gladys House from the Freedmen's Town community, Jackie Bostic, who may be here or not, the granddaughter of Miss Whiting. And then, of course, we made our way to Third Ward, and Deloitte Parker is here, and other pastors, and not other pastors, but pastors, and we've already talked about John Guest. I don't want to miss people. Teddy McDavid is here. Carl Davis lives everywhere. Who else is here?
Independence Heights.
Well, I'm making my journey. Theola Petaway, Gerald Womack. I'm just randomly calling your name, so it's the heart. It's the mind and not the heart. And then we made it to Independence Heights, and they brought just a whole team of authentic Texans with their black T-shirts, Tanya DeBose and everybody. I know that Councilmember Cisneros is here. Thank you, and I know that Commissioner Ellis was trying to make it, and this is the territory of Senator Boris Miles and Representative Garnett Coleman. I must acknowledge Mr. Third Ward, and that is Dr. Elwin C. Lee, who has just planted his feet here and continues. We thank our mayor, as you will hear from him shortly, but let me say what moved both Senator Cornyn and myself. First, I had to write the legislation, and I was impressed upon the fact, and this is the history that I want our media friends to gather. You're really seeing something that has not happened. First of all, this is only the second moment of commemorating the history of freed slaves by the United States of America under the U.S. Park Service. They are the custodians of this. They're the custodians of the African American Culture and History Museum. They are the custodians. And the first one captured recent history, the civil rights history, and it took Senator Cornyn more than a decade to get done. More than a decade. Now, in less than 3 years, we have held hearings, we have had testimony, we've had a committee vote, well, wait a minute, a subcommittee vote, a committee vote, a House vote, then to the Senate with Senator Cornyn as that sponsor, and then the terminology is hotline to the floor. You have to understand that that is very, 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 very rare. From the hotline to the Senate, and then to the desk of the President of the United States. And I must tell you that there are any number of trails that have passed, and they are nowhere near where we are. They have passed. They have passed the House. I won't say any more. This is now law of the land to begin this process. This has never been done, and I want to thank you. Let me just briefly say that the success of this is a collective success. This is an emotional statement that we can say to our children that, yes, you've seen descriptions of watermelon and strawberry pop. Nothing wrong with that. I'm trying to get you all to own up to that. That was fellowship. That was family. It's called Juneteenth. And I want you to know that across the nation, they celebrate Juneteenth because it is a day of freedom and jubilee. And when that proclamation was declared in 1863, understand no matter what the economic need was in Texas, we were held 2 more years. And we should explain to our neighbors, our friends, the diverse community, how devastating that was, but how strong we were. And so the idea that Texas had never had a singly contained trail. You have two other trails, if my recollection serves me right, but they split between states, New Mexico and Louisiana. And so in this instance, we provided a trail that is solely contained in this great state. From Galveston up along the little cities, and we haven't highlighted them, but it will stop in cities that you will know, maybe some of your hometowns, and you'll be able to tell the story of your ancestors. And then it will make its way to Houston, and how proud we are that Houston, with Galveston, has sites, two big cities, if I might say. Freedmen's Town, many of you remember Logan's Run, Logan's Camp, then on to this community in this historic park, and then we knew we were not complete, and they accepted my amendment of my own bill to add Independence Heights. You don't know, as the senator does, that when someone sees a moving target like a bill, Senator, I didn't give you that drama, there are some folk trying to get on board. And said, just throw our little amendment on here. And then folks said that will certainly not kill you, but drown you. So I had to get back to the negotiating board and smile at the person that was trying to jump on board and say, I love you, but you'll have to move on down the road right now. He knows that happens in legislation. And so I think it is important to take note of my emotion of how this trail and its legislation, the Emancipation National Historical Trail, was in fact done. The establishment of this trail, the second trail for which the National Park Service would have responsibility, and it will tell the story of African Americans and will preserve for future generations the rich history of the newly freed slaves who journeyed to Houston in search of economic and political opportunity and greater religious and cultural freedom. Yes, they had a history of picking cotton and doing whatever the idea of economics was in this area, but they were free, and they walked that trail to make their way to a place that they could raise their family. They were in the backdrop of the Civil War. They were ex-slaves, but they were free. Shortly thereafter, in 1865 as well, the 13th Amendment was passed to declare that there were no more slaves to be held in the United States. And Abraham Lincoln, in the second inaugural speech, said, "Yet, if God wills that it continue," meaning the Civil War, "until all the wealth piled by the bondsmen's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said that judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether." That was a very tough time for America. And we should stand here today and be mighty proud and not ashamed of highlighting this history for all to see. They should know Reedy Chapel. They should know Emancipation. They should know Independence Heights. They should know Freedmen's Town in a way that all can be done. I thank Ramon Manning for his work and all of the corporations and foundations that he named. I look forward to them joining and being part of the development of this trail. The bill does include an initiative of $13 million, but we are beginning our work on what we call appropriations. The story that has been told will be told of all of the elements of our history. We'll know about Freedmen's Town as a historic district. By 1920, 1/3 of Houston's 85,000 people lived in Freedmen's Town. We will know all of that. And we will understand as we walk or bike or hike that this is a great courageous moment for our people. But it is one to be shared by all of the people. That's what this means. So finally, I want to say, I want to thank the city of Galveston. UTMB, is Doug Matthews here? Can you raise an excellent partner in all of this, the city of Houston, and you will now hear from the mayor. All of these components shocked my colleagues that we could get this vast support for this long a period of time. So I'm delighted to now acknowledge and thank the mayor for his leadership on parks and say to you that this is a momentous and historic day. Thank you very much.
Look, let me say good afternoon, and certainly I also want to acknowledge the mayor of Dickerson, who is here as well. Hello.
Mayor.
Come on up. Let me start off, and they have already laid the foundation. So I too want to thank Senator Cornyn and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for their exceptional work to secure an Emancipation National Historic Trail designation. And the city of Houston is grateful for both of you, and we sincerely, in this case, appreciate the president for causing Sheila Jackson Lee and Senator Cornyn to dance on this very special day. God is still on the throne. I also, and I want to appreciate them both because I don't want to lose the significance of this moment. So it doesn't happen every day, and this is a special moment, and it serves as a unifying moment for so many geographical areas. So to Senator Cornyn, thank you very, very much, and very much appreciated. To Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, thank you. Give them both another hand. I also want to recognize today the work of Ramon Manning, Chairman, Emancipation Park Conservancy, Sharon Gillis, Trustee, Reedy Chapel AME Church, Nay Macaria, Founding Executive Director, the Texas Center for African American Living History, Eileen Lawal, President of the Freedmen's Town Conservancy, and all the others that the Congresswoman and others have already recognized on this special day. You and other groups also have been instrumental in securing designation of 7 places in Houston as sites of memory as part of the UNESCO Slave Route Project. And these sites are Emancipation Park, the Olivewood Cemetery, the African American Library, the Gregory School, 1810, the Reverend Ned Pullum and Emma Eddie Pullum House, the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, the Middle Pastor Ceremonies and Port Marcus Project at the Port of Galveston, and the Workman's College Barber and Beauty Shop. Houston history is entwined with our nation's and world's history and telling our story is more important given our place as a global center of culture and commerce. And of course, we've all talked about Juneteenth, 1865, in reference to the Emancipation Proclamation. That freedom inspired many to search for a new life, and armed with little but faith and determination, the former slaves began a 51-mile journey from Galveston to Houston. And what we are doing today kind of causes us all to kind of walk back in time and then to move forward into our future. They settled in what would later become Freedmen's Town, where today you can still see many of the bricks. And we owe our gratitude to those who persevered along the journey. An Emancipation National Historical Trail designation from Galveston to Houston would be significant. By documenting and preserving history, future generations will learn about a resilient and proud group of people who were former slaves. The significance of this moment for me, and I know for so many others, and not necessarily to reflect on the past, but we're establishing again a roadmap for future generations to come. And that's why the work of Senator Cornyn and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is so important. As mayor, I know the city of Houston is honored to have the distinct designation of being home to only the second Emancipation Trail in the United States, but the first trail in the Southwest United States that recognizes the role of African Americans in the United States. Thank you again to Senator Cornyn. Thank you to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And finally, I believe the Emancipation National Historic Trail will draw visitors from all over the world to our city and generate tourism as people visit the area and retrace the steps and the walk of these trails. Houston First has something else to talk about when we are celebrating and touting our city. It's not just downtown, but it will be this trail that can be added to everything that we talk about. And so the City of Houston stands ready to help make the study a significant reality. I look forward to one day attending a ribbon cutting and grand opening of the future Emancipation National Historic Trail, because I know with partners like the Senator John Cornyn, and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, $13 million is just not very much when you're dealing with two Texas giants like these two. And so I'm just honored. We call those things that are not as though they are, and so it shall be. And this trail symbolizes what happens when you don't give up and you just stay in the game. Thank you both so very, very much. Councilmember Carlos Cisneros, thank you for being here and the work that you're doing in Independent Heights.
A little Q&A right now, is that okay?
Yeah, can I have you come up, Eileen, and stand with us so that you can be part of the Q&A? And Senator, you. I'm right behind her.
I'll be right behind
Yeah.
you.
We'll take questions. Let me accept the mayor's command of it will be, and indicate that in all of these there's seed money, but what we do want to say to you is that it is documented by the U.S. Park Service that these trails over the length of their life create billions of dollars in tourist dollars. And so we know what we have just done. We've just opened up the opportunities for all of the historic elements that are here, from the African American Museum led by John Guest, from Shape Community Center, from Tears, from churches and pastors. We want to have people coming to your church as they go in Selma and Montgomery and Birmingham, because you have a story to tell. And all the churches in Third Ward and the surrounding area. So Independence Heights, get ready. Freedmen's Town, Mr. Cook in the Olivewood, where are you? You need to be seen. Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
There he is.
You take care of that by yourself almost. They'll give him a hand. Gladys and her team, and then on to this area, and then on to Independence Heights. Get ready, because we want to highlight all of you and highlight your history. Any questions? We have overwhelmed them. So I'm just going to let,
Anticipated all the questions.
yeah, I'm just going to let you just say a word of your testimony and how you, just a word. Eileen is the one that presented the enormous work of Naomi Carrier, but her own work in the committee room. Yeah.
To change glasses.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
That's all right. Caught you by surprise.
Yeah.
But in any event, we're grateful for your testimony, and you had to take questions there.
Yes.
Oh, good.
First of all, I just really want to thank Senator Cornyn and Congresswoman Lee, and I have to give a special thanks to the best mayor in the United States. That's Mayor Sylvester Turner. I can honestly say, without Mayor Turner's vision, we would not be involved in this process. And it was he who said, gather the troops together, we are going to make this happen, get it done, and let me know when it's finished. So phase one, we're here, and yeah, we will need that money. But I had the opportunity to go up to Congress and give my testimony on why this Emancipation Trail is important. Houston and the state of Texas are very unique. We are the only space that has physical evidence representing people of African descent post-emancipation. We're the only space where you can actually drive and see Reedy Chapel. You can go to Freedmen's Town and see the Brits. You can see the first public school for free children. You can see churches that are still existing. You can go to Antioch Baptist Church. Queen Elizabeth visited Antioch Baptist Church. So this is something that you don't see in other major cities. This is unique to Houston. And I'm so excited that when I visit other spaces, I see they have imported our story in Liverpool, England, and they talk about our emancipation process in Liverpool, England. So what we want to do is capture our story, bring it back to Houston, bring it back to the state of Texas, and have all those individuals visit us and benefit from those tourism dollars and the jobs that it can create that are sustainable, that cannot be outsourced. Again, thank you very much. And there's one person I want to mention, Emmett J. Scott. Emmett J. Scott was born in Freedmen's Town, He was the executive director to Booker T. Washington for 18 years. Emmett J. Scott said, "There is no emancipated group who has ever accomplished so much in such a short period of time." Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator, you just come on up. We are going to continue to work on this together. There is an appropriations process. We need all of your support, but please don't go away without thinking that you have experienced an historic moment, that the trail exists, it is law, and all we have to do is go to the next step, and we hope that you will enjoy this historical moment and this moment of great heartfelt intent to tell our story and to give tribute to our loving ancestors who never would have imagined that anything would ever come of their bondage, their freedom, and their lives after. That's what the Emancipation Historic Trail is all about. Senator Cornyn?
This is obviously, I was thinking, Sheila, about your quote from Lincoln's second inaugural and the original sin of slavery in this country and the price that our country paid during a terrible civil war. But obviously, an Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln was not enough, which is why we had to pass the 13th Amendment. But this is a story that is important for so many reasons. One is because obviously the huge contradiction between our stated principles as a country and what we actually practiced during those days. But I think the words of one wise person who said, "If you forget your history, you're condemned to relive it," is something we ought to think about. And so that's why this history needs to be preserved. That's why this story needs to continue to be told. And that's why this trail is so important.
Thank you very much. Let me applaud all of you. If there are no other questions, let me applaud everybody. Thank you.